Welcome back to Saigon Storyteller. We have the story of the gecko this time. It's an ancient Vietnamese folklore. Once upon a time, there was a man named Gecko and his wife living together in a very poor house next to a local market, begging people for food day after day. Gecko wanted to do something to escape this poverty. He and his wife had been saving money and buried it at a corner of the house. The saving got bigger and bigger through the years, but they still pretended to be poor to continue begging people for money and food. One day, Gecko finished his begging job and came home very late at night. As he was walking along the river, he saw two water buffaloes fighting to death. He knew that it was an omen of a huge flood coming soon. He rushed back home, dug the money up, and used all of it to buy rice. Soon in August, it turned out to be a horrible flood. Rice fields, houses, and cattle were destroyed everywhere. Famine followed that crazy flood as well. Price of rice kept rising 10 times, then even 100 times. No one had any rice left to sell. Gecko waited for his chance when all rice sources in the local area was depleted to start selling his rice. Some rich people even had to trade gold nugget for 1 kilo of rice. Gecko and his wife got rich in a blink and put a stop to their begging life. They started lending the money with high interest and made even more money. Soon he became a very rich man. He bought cattle, houses, and fields, a lot of them. He started to do bigger businesses. He sent large trading ships throughout the country to trade, and he even worked with local thugs and got his shares in every case. After 10 years, Gecko, from just a beggar, became the richest man in the country. He had interest in politics as well, so he donated a lot of money to the king. The king granted him the chief of the district title in return. He moved to the royal city, built a mansion like one of the king or queen. He had more than 100 concubines, all dressed up in expensive silks. He and his wife had a very easy and luxurious life. There was the queen's brother, who was very rich as well, and they started to show off their richness. The man said, "My slaves are all dressed up in expensive silks. It takes up a whole storehouse of silks to dress them well enough." Gecko replied, "It takes the amount of rice for a whole district to feed my slaves." The older man continued, "I had to use sugar instead of woods for my stove." Gecko interrupted, "I used a whole warehouse of candles to keep my house warm in the winter." Hearing their conversation, a random royal assistant came and said, "Your arguments are useless. There must be a proof for people to trust you. How about you two bring out all of your wealth and treasures to show off, so people can see and believe what you say? Whoever loses the competition must give the other 10 crates of gold. I'll be the judge for the competition. What do you say?" They both agreed to that offer. Then the competition day came. They signed an agreement first. The queen was worried that her brother would lose the competition, so she sent some smart eunuch to assist him. The queen's brother started his turn by bringing all of his silks out and hanging them like curtains on all of his houses. Gecko did the same. The queen's brother ordered all of his roof bricks to be replaced by expensive glass, so his entire mansion became sparkling and gorgeous. Gecko replied by replacing all of his floor tiles by jade stones. People gave an applause to Gecko. The competition got even more intense. Gecko asked the queen's brother, "Do you have corals?" The queen's brother brought out a big coral of 3 meters tall. Then he asked Gecko back, "Do you have rhino's horn?" Gecko didn't flinch at all. He brought out a big rhino's horn with a lot of gemstones encrusted on it. They kept showing off many other treasures. Then some even weird magical stuffs got involved. Gecko said, "I have a horse from the far west of China that can run 1,000 miles a day without shedding a sweat." People gathered around to contemplate the magical horse. The queen's brother immediately replied and invited them to his house to see his double-headed deer. Gecko took some moments of silence, then took out a gem from his pocket. He said, "This magical gem makes you feel cool in summer and warm in winter. Definitely the one and only in this whole world." The queen's brother was now confused. He intended to borrow something from the queen, but a eunuch came and whispered something in his ear. He immediately returned to the battle and said, "I bet there is one thing that you do not have, no matter how rich you are." Gecko replied with all of his ego, "There is nothing in this world that I do not have. If you can find one, I would not only lose 10 crates of gold to you, but also my entire treasure and mansion. In the other hand, you will have to lose the same if you fail to find one." They both signed a new agreement. Right after it was signed and sealed, the queen's brother said, "Now please show your clay pot to everyone here." Gecko was terrified. It is nothing extraordinary at all. That poor little clay pot that every poor people used to cook. When he was still poor, he had to search for it in a trash field, took it home to clean first, and used to cook. But he dumped it away a long time ago. There's no such thing in his house right now. Not in his rich house like this. He desperately searched his entire mansion, but there is no sight of one single clay pot. So the result was clear. Everyone agreed that the queen's brother won the competition. Gecko still couldn't believe that he lost painfully like that. He had to stood right there watching his entire wealth, mansion, wife and kids, and concubines go straight to the hands of that queen's brother. Sitting alone in his poor tent again, he kept chucking his tongue, feeling sorry for everything that he'd made in the past 10 years. Now he's completely empty-handed. Then he died and turned into a gecko that kept chucking his tongue with regret for the rest of his life. Local people still use this phrase, "gecko without a clay pot," to educate their kids that no one in this whole life has everything. The end.